Welcome to The Secrets of Success. By following the proven techniques of the guests who appear on this series, you'll learn that even successful people run into detours and failures, and how you can apply their success techniques to change your life.
You're now listening to the most unique show on radio, the show dedicated to making you a success. Today, author Marc Effron wants you to know that success is just 8 steps away. Let's find out more from Marc. Marc, thanks for being with us today.
I'm happy to be here, Bill. Thanks for inviting me.
Now, Marc will tell our audience you've written a book, 8 Steps to High Performance. Subtitle, Focus on What You Can Change. Parentheses, ignore the rest. And you start the book out by saying something just so obvious, but I guess we've never thought of it. No one ever tells us how to be successful. We go to school, we go to preschool, we go to early school, we go to, where they put the little kids' daycare, but nobody tells us about success except you. How come?
Well, I think lots of folks try to tell us about success. There's no shortage of people as we grow up who want to offer us small pearls of wisdom, but it's the rare individual who has had such a broad set of experiences that they can actually come back to us and say, listen to me, I can help you to avoid stepping in a lot of puddles you shouldn't step in and help to point out the shortcuts. So part of the challenge is not that people have any ill intent or they're hiding things from us. Most people simply haven't had a broad enough set of experiences to be able to give us all that great advice.
Fair enough. Okay. Now, let me ask you, and you've done research, I know we're going to talk about that later, but can anyone honestly be a high-performance type person? I mean, are some people just limited or just not going to get there?
Well, some people can be higher performers than others, but we can all be higher performers than we are today. And as you know from reading through the book, everything that I talk about in the book is based on hardcore academic science. This is not platitudes. It's not Marc's theory of life. This is looking at what is conclusively proven to help folks to be higher performers. And there's a lot of great advice that if you translate it from the science into something that the average Jill or Joe can understand, we can all apply to be higher performers.
Now, that's something I want to bring out to our audience, Marc. We always, of course, this is a show on success. We've been on almost 30 years. And, people come on and say management by walking around, management by drinking more water or staying healthy or sleeping more. And all these are good things. They're certainly not bad. But it's somebody's idea of what will help and make us more successful. Sometimes we give it a try, sometimes we don't. You actually did a lot of research on this, didn't you?
Yeah, everything that I do, I like to start with the absolute strongest science about people and organization, because I'm very agnostic around what to do. My view is let's do what works. And there are a lot of smart people out there working very, very hard to understand what is scientifically proven to help people be more effective at work. And it seems like a logical starting point to say, hey, smart people, what have you found out, as opposed to guessing at it or listening to your crazy uncle or whoever is giving you performance advice. And so what I did is I read through thousands of academic articles to understand what actually is conclusively proven to improve performance at work. And the challenge is those are not exciting articles. They are thick with a lot of scientific jargon. So the challenge is how do we then translate that into things that people can actually use? And that's what I've done in the book is said, here's a little bit of what the science says, but then more practically, how can you apply that as an individual in an easy way to be a higher performer?
And, Marc, I wrote down what you said at the beginning there. Let's do what works. I think I'm going to write that on a kind of a ribbon-type piece of paper and stick it above my desk. Because, isn't that sensible? And you've found it for us. You've kind of wheedled down these hundreds and thousands of articles to 8 steps. And, I think that's the essence of the book, that if we can get someone to do it, you've done the hard part. Now all we have to do is follow the 8 steps.
And that's exactly it. And as simple and as difficult as that may seem, the 8 steps are there. They are proven to be effective. There's, this isn't a get successful quick scheme. This is, if you do it, it's going to work better. Now, that doesn't mean it's easy. If high performance was easy, everybody would be a high performer. That's the reason that there's not many folks out there is a lot of us either don't know how, or in some cases just don't want to put forth the effort that's needed to actually be a higher performer. But the path is clear. The 8 steps are proven. The 8 steps work.
Now, how would you define a high performer? Is there a definition of that to start off with?
Yeah, I use a definition that I think helps to raise the bar a bit. My definition of a high performer is somebody who delivers and behaves at the 75th percentile compared to their peers day in and day out. So that's performs and behaves. You both get stuff done and you behave in a way that is productive while you get that stuff done, but you're doing that better than 3 out of 4 of the people that you work with, and you're doing that consistently. So that sets a pretty high bar. We all have our good year or bad year. That's not a high performer. We can all drive through results and act like a jerk. That's not a high performer. It's really doing it all and doing it consistently. It's going to separate out the best.
And basically, when you say be in the 75th percentile, be in the top quarter of whatever it is you're doing, whether you're a math teacher, a plumber, an accountant, or maintenance.
Exactly.
And that's fair enough, and that I think we'd all like to feel that way. And if we're in that group, we're usually admired and respected, and we're the go-to person in the group.
Yeah, there's lots of benefits from being a high performer. It's not all about making more money, but if that's your goal, that's certainly one of the benefits. Being a high performer also gives you a lot more access to things you might want. If you want to meet more important people, if you want to have more interesting experiences, if you want to get more involved in your community, higher performance is going to open a lot more doors for you. So while I think the obvious kind of go-to is, high performers just want to make more money, that's a great outcome. I have no problem with that. But there are lots of other great outcomes that high performance can deliver as well.
Mark, at this point in the show, I always like to remind our audience, somebody may be tuning in or may have missed the first part of the show. Our guest today is Marc Effron, E-F-F-R-O-N. His book is 8 Steps to High Performance. Focus on what you can change, parentheses, ignore the rest, close parentheses. Mark, would you tell us, is there a website, and where can we get the book?
There is a website. Your listeners can go to the8steps.com, and actually while they're there, they can download the first chapter of the book for free. So they get a little taste of what comes after that. And the book is available from all the major sellers. I think it's fastest and easiest from Amazon. You can also get it from Barnes & Noble, from Harvard Business Review.org. Just Google 8 Steps, and you'll get a number of places coming up that you can buy from.
And the book, I think, in total is probably less than 180 pages that you'll be reading. Mark, gives you the sections where he got these high steps from, and a lot of footnotes at the end. You obviously don't have to go through that, but it's not something that's going to be long and boring. If you're taking a plane flight or you're sitting in an airport, a lot of times you can get these books right there. Look for the 8 Steps to High Performance by our guest, Marc Effron. The people on the plane will say, the guy must be pretty smart. He's reading that book and he's, moving up that corporate ladder. So some other smart people may talk to you, maybe pretty or handsome people that, depending on your liking. And also it's just going to make you move up in your field, and you're going to find some statistics we'll talk about why this is important, other than for the obvious reasons. Now, Mark, something you said in your book, and I want to see if I read this right, many smart people underperform basically because they simply don't know these steps. Did I get that correct?
Absolutely. We probably all know someone where we think, why didn't they get farther in life? They seem to be pretty bright, but for some reason their career plateaued, or they just took a left turn when they shouldn't have. Part of the challenge is that most of us think that we're successful because of what we do. Oftentimes we're successful in spite of what we do. And the sooner we realize those in spite of things, the sooner we can correct them. So, for example, let's say that you're a young go-getter and you move up very quickly. You're a supervisor, then you're a manager, and then you're a director, and you've gotten there quickly because you have an overwhelming strength, but you might also have a lot of weaknesses, but the strength has been big enough that it's pulled you along, and people have put up with the weaknesses. But now they're looking at you for the big job, for a VP job, and while they love your strengths, they might say, well, actually, in a VP job, those weaknesses are going to be a fatal flaw. You're simply not going to succeed. And the challenge for most folks is they aren't self-aware enough early enough to correct those errors. Most of what we do wrong are easily correctable because we simply weren't aware that those behaviors weren't the right ones. The more self-aware we can be earlier in our career, the more successful we're going to be. Because people are going to say, hey, Mark, if you did a little bit more of this or a little bit less of that, you would be more successful. And if you really want to be a high performer, you're going to follow that advice.
Now, Mark, something I think will impress if we have employers or bosses out there. High-performance employees deliver, and you tell me if I got this right, 100 to 500% more output than lower performers. So we go anywhere from doubling the lower performers' output to 500%, which, if my math is right, that's 5 times. So, I mean, a high performer is doing more on Monday than the average worker might be doing 5 days a week.
Absolutely, and the science is unbelievably strong around that. And they've done a lot of work looking at coders and other jobs where it's really easy to measure the quality and the quantity of the output. And the people who are in the top 10% just greatly outperform the folks who are average or slightly below. And so if you are able to get somebody's performance and behaviors up, the return on that probably pretty small investment is just huge.
And I think for any boss, it sounds like I'm promoting your book and telling people to go out and buy it, but I really think it's a good idea. If you're the boss of the group and you want these people to pick up even 10 or 20%. Let's not even talk about doubling it or 5 times what they're doing. But maybe buy each of your staff members a copy of this book and say, let's read it and talk about it in a meeting and see what we can do in the office to start putting even 1 or 2 of these steps in practice. If you put 2 out of the 8, I'm using a lot of math here, that's 25%. And if we equate that to salary, wouldn't you like a 25% raise? I think we would all like that. You don't have to move jobs, just do a little better at what you're presently doing. And as I said, Mark makes it easy. He really lays it out for us. Mark, I'm sorry. It sounded like you had something to say.
I was just going to add on and start, if you're that boss, start with a mindset that we can all get better at something, including you, boss. And so it might even help to say, hey, I read this book. I thought it was pretty cool. Here's the step I'm going to work on, and I'm going to ask for your help in being better. So showing a little humility is a great way for other people to say, well, if the boss can admit that he or she can get better at something, I guess I can admit I can get better at something. And you can literally read through the 8 steps, and we even have a checklist, I think, in the first chapter, where it just asks you to do a quick self-evaluation. Just read through the 8 and say, which of these do I think would give me the biggest boost most quickly if I worked on? Great. Work on that one thing. You don't need to get better at all 8 right away.
So now I'm going to change my advice. If you're an employee, buy your boss a copy of the 8 Steps to High Performance and say, hey, boss, lead us by you taking the lead and show us that you're going to change something.
Never a bad start to say, hey, boss, I want you to be wildly successful. Here's a book that might help you on your already fantastic path.
There you go. Now, you have something called the fixed 50% and the flexible 50%. Tell us what that means.
Sure. The fixed 50 and the flexible 50 are just ways of saying some of us are born with great performance advantages. So things like some people are born smarter than others. Some people are born with personality characteristics that make it more likely they're going to be high performers. Some people are born into great socioeconomic environments. Other people are born into more challenged environments. Some people have great parents. Other people have horrible parents. By the time you get to work, you can't do a darn thing about any of those. So while if you can certainly work against those social injustices, but from your own performance perspective, you should really focus on the things that you can control. And that's what I lay out in the first chapter of the book is, yeah, there are a lot of things that give some people a performance head start. Hey, good for them. But that's at most, that controls at most about 50% of someone's performance at work. The other 50% is completely controllable by you. And those are the 8 steps that I lay out in the book to say, even if somebody might have started a couple of yards ahead of you in a race, if you're executing those 8 steps more successfully than they are, you're going to overtake them.
Mark, we want to find out the 8 steps, and that's what's coming next, so we'll whet the appetite of our audience. But at this point in the show, we like to remind our listeners that you're listening to The Secrets of Success. My name is Bill Horan. This show is produced at the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.